We're going to learn about a new kind of verb. Now, you've already been working with verbs for a while. You know that verbs have to be conjugated and all that sort of thing. This new kind of verb is called a modal verb. And a modal verb will always be used in a sentence that contains two verbs total. And when I say always, I mean most of the time. There's a couple exceptions here and there. But let's start off with always. Modal verbs are always in a sentence that contains two verbs. And there's a rule, whenever there's two verbs in a sentence, one of those verbs will wind up at the end of the sentence. Let's take a look. Sometimes we have two verbs in a sentence. We do this in English. Let's take a look. I should exercise. We can play. Those are two verbs, should and exercise, can and play. I should exercise more. We can play cards. So same thing in German. Two verbs in a sentence. Ich soll mehr trainieren. Wir können Karten spielen. Two verbs. The difference is German will put one of those verbs at the very end of the sentence. Up front we have what we call the modal verb, full name, Modal Auxiliary Verb. You can also call it a helping verb. At the end it's going to be called an infinitive verb. Big hint, most of the time infinitive verbs with en, right? Infinitive verbs often end with the two letters en, 90% of the time, or whatever. Okay, so up front, a modal verb. What are modal verbs? Ich kann, ich soll, ich muss, ich will, ich werde, right? So when you say any of those, you feel the need for another verb. I can what? I can write, I can read, I can walk, I can talk, I can swim. I should what? I should be in school. I should eat my vegetables. I must do, I must be, I must go, I must have, right? So every one of those verbs creates the need for another verb. A few more modal verbs. Ich möchte, ich darf, ich würde. So all of those are going to create this structure where we have one of those modal verbs up front and then the infinitive at the end. Er soll die Hausaufgaben machen, right? He should the homework do. So get ready to that, get used to that unusual word order, right? He should the homework do. That's the way we're going to say it. So get used to putting that verb at the end. Sie muss im Garten arbeiten. She must in the garden work. So, three quick takeaway points on modal verbs. Number one, modal verbs are irregular. They take different endings than a normal verb. So you say ich kann, ich darf. It doesn't have the usual E ending. Er kann, er darf. It doesn't have the usual letter T at the end. So modal verbs are irregular. Number two, the other verb in the sentence, the infinitive verb in the sentence, at the end of the sentence will usually end with the letters en. And number three, watch out for that word order. It sounds weird. I should tomorrow with my friend the homework do. If it sounds weird, it's probably right. Keep that other verb at the end of the sentence. All right. So that was a look at modal verbs, and you understand now why they are always in a two-verb sentence. Because when you say I must, I should, I can, I want to, you're waiting for the next verb. I want to do what? I should do what? I must do what? Modal verbs add on to another verb. The main verb carries the meaning. The modal verb tells you about can, should, must, want to, those kind of stuff. All right, that's all for now. See you later. Goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss.